Tuesday, man. What's going on?
It's definitely Tuesday. All right, you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely,
on
man.
this Tuesday, on this fine Tuesday?
For people who may not know who I am, my name is Kareem. I'm from Philly originally. Currently live in probably like 20 minutes outside of Philly in an area called like Mount Laurel, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'm not gonna go super deep into the weeds of who I am, but man, you know, I found my niche in wholesaling real estate. I was dead broke when I started off. I remember maxing out my credit card to buy a course to learn the game because like I just knew something had to pop off for me. So I got into it. At the time, I picked up a 9-to-5. It was a side hustle that I turned into my main hustle now, and I actually retired my 9-to-5 2 weeks ago. But we could get deeper into that a little bit later. But man, I actively wholesale real estate out of state. You and I, we built up a portfolio out of state. Yeah. You know, not ever seeing these properties in person, man. So
out of state where, real quick?
Yeah, so I'm in Jersey. We bought in Ohio. So I wholesale in Ohio. We buy in Ohio. It's been like a little bit over 2 years for me personally in my whole entrepreneurship real estate business, man. It's been a roller coaster.
Well, shout out to you for taking action.
Salute, brother.
Being actionable.
Thank you.
My name is Mohammed Easmael. I'm an investor in the area. I don't know. I can't really, describe it the way you're describing it. I can say that I like to find opportunities.
I like that.
You know what I mean? Whether it's real estate or business or, personal relationships, whatever it is, I just search for opportunities.
I see.
So I try to find opportunities early and then be actionable.
How long you been searching opportunities and take advantage of those decisions?
I don't know, man, since I was like 10. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit of a long time.
For sure, man. For sure.
Yeah. So I think that would be best to describe me and keep it short, or else it'll go into like a rant,
Yeah. It's a good rant, man. You have a great, amazing story for sure.
I appreciate that. And we can get into detail about that, at some point.
Absolutely.
But first, I want to get into some topics, right? So we got a couple topics that we want to go over.
Yeah.
Okay. We've been meaning to get back. I've been meaning to get back into the podcast space.
Yeah.
And just have conversations with people that I'm interested in.
Absolutely.
And I think this is a good opportunity for us to start.
Yep. These are all current events too, man. It's very important to, the real estate business. Again, like I'm a little bit over 2 years in, so I haven't seen complete like cycles of over a decade. I wasn't there for the whole 2008 boom and things like that, or fall, I should say. But I do understand that this business is very dynamic.
Yeah.
Right. So it's important to kind of know what's happening so you can learn, you can get ahead of it and pivot. You know what I mean? That's how you really win in real estate, I'd say.
Honestly, it's essential.
Yes.
You have to know what's going on.
Yes.
Because people are moving in one direction and there could be a shift. Mm-hmm. And you just have this incredible opportunity.
Yes.
Case in point, COVID.
Talk about it.
Yeah. So like everybody was really, really nervous and scared, legitimately. Yeah. It was like people were scared. I'm going to say initially legitimately, right? Yeah. Like in the beginning, people were losing family members, people were getting sick. So there was a lot of insecurity and disruption. And there was disruption across all sectors.
Yep.
But one specific sector was real estate. It was an incredibly disrupting story in the real estate industry in the United States specifically.
Yeah.
It caused massive appreciation in certain markets.
Right.
And if you were on top of that, there was a lot of people that were paying attention. They created hyper appreciation.
When did that spike happen? So say COVID breaks out like early springtime.
Yeah.
2020. When did that real spike happen though? Was it like a year later or a few months after?
So I'm gonna keep it real with you. I've had situations where I've spoken to people in the past. So we operate like retail stores as well.
Okay.
So we have retail stores, and we have a lot of employees that come from all over the world that work for us.
Gotcha.
Right. So they come in for the summer and they have like visas in order to work here, and then they go back to their country. It's a summer work and travel program
for sure.
Right. So at one point I was talking to a Russian kid that worked for me, and he goes, this was years ago. This is like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it was. And he goes, there was a point where hyperinflation occurred in Russia. And I was like, really? What happened? He was like, the ruble basically collapsed, their currency. And when their currency collapsed, everything like skyrocketed.
Wow.
Yeah, the cost of everything. I'm like, so what skyrocketed? By the way, this is a 5-6 year conversation.
Wow.
So I talked to this person about his experience like 6 years ago, and it just stuck with me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So real quick to kind of like break it down. So the valuation of the currency went down, therefore, of course.
For whatever reason, there was maybe political instability. Mm-hmm. There was something that was going on that suppressed the value of their currency.
Therefore, valuations to buy things
therefore, everything went up.
That's crazy.
The cost of a water bottle went up. The cost of a computer went up. The cost of a car went up. Now, when you experience hyperinflation, when you experience inflation, things go up.
Yeah.
When you experience hyperinflation, things go up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So what I found was interesting was he goes to me, as soon as it happened, I bought a car.
Wow.
And I thought that was brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, as soon as you knew that it was going to be a hyperinflation situation, you went out and bought a car? I'm like, that's kind of irresponsible. He was like, nah, no, it wasn't. I'm like, why? He's like, because if I did not buy this car, like the money was becoming worthless.
Yes.
So I just took this money and I stored it in a thing that people wanted. And bro, for whatever reason, that stuck with me.
Wow.
So to take that back to our original conversation about COVID, when COVID happened, it was almost like his voice was in the back of my head.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like I was cooling off of real estate for a while, and I was building retail stores and just doing.
You were already in real estate before COVID.
2000. I was buying and selling and making offers on properties 2006 through 2010 to 11.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was flipping houses in 2010. So I have a background in I have a background in real estate before I had a background in apparel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I just took my foot off the real estate gas in order to go build some retail stores.
Wow.
Yeah, real estate back then was expensive. Mm-hmm. Funding wasn't cheap. You know what I mean?
All in the Southern Jersey market.
Yeah.
Real estate.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, mainly in areas that I knew. You know, I wanted to get, you know, I talked to you about this in the past. I wanted to invest in Buffalo at one point and do virtual investing.
New York.
But it was like, I didn't know anybody out there.
Yeah.
I had all the reasons to not do something. And I heard about people buying up the blocks over there for like nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, I started looking up Buffalo. I'm like, man, I could buy a house for nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I should just do this. And then I did the typical, you know.
You kind of focused on the lack. Like, hey, I don't have a team. I don't have this. So therefore I shouldn't do it type of thing.
I did everything that you're not supposed to do when you're figuring out whether to invest in a market.
Very interesting.
I told myself all the reasons why it wouldn't work.
For sure. And
instead of doing my due diligence, getting on a plane, spending $100, $200 on a plane ticket, landing in Buffalo, and just hitting the ground and understanding the lay of the land, I just told myself it's a plane ride away. I can't do it. So because I told myself I couldn't do it, I won't do it. Exactly. And if I would have told myself probably I'm going to go do this, I probably would have a few $100 in Buffalo right now.
Your inner dialogue is very important, man.
Yeah.
What you believe that you can or cannot do, like,
it's
a game changer. Your
inner dialogue is important, and what dialogue you choose to listen to is important because that affects your inner dialogue.
We're getting deep, man.
Yeah, we're getting really, really deep.
Let's pivot back to COVID because I want you to finish your initial thought.
Yeah, let me get back to that.
But these are great gems for sure.
So the COVID thing was interesting. If like it was like a light switch for me. And I would, you know, every day I would come to work and I would talk to my business partner, Phil, about this.
Gotcha.
And I'd be like, dude, real estate's going to go through the roof. And I would just be repeating it every day, making offers every day. Like my mind was like obsessed with buying.
You knew it because you knew the valuation of the dollar.
They
were printing a lot of money then.
I knew that they were going to pumping dollars into the system.
Yeah.
Was going to inflate everything, and a rising tide lifts all boats. Wow. Like I just knew that's currency currency is actually energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what it's
like stored energy.
You know who Michael Saylor is? Michael Saylor?
I don't actually.
They call him like the prophet or the godfather of crypto.
Okay.
And he said a very interesting, I was watching a podcast, he said a very interesting thing. And he said money is a mode of transacting energy.
Wow.
Yeah. And he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
He's 100% right. So I knew that if they took all of this in like fake,
That's all it is.
it's contrived currency, and they dumped it into a market, if they doubled the amount of money or currency that existed in a country, all of that currency would just drive up the cost of everything.
That's like the natural order of it.
Of course.
Sure.
If you take a pool and you have 100,000 gallons, or let's say 10,000 gallons, make it easy. Let's say you got 10,000 gallons. Everything in that pool is going to be like, at that point, if you take another 10,000 gallons, it's going to rise.
Yeah.
And that's the way I looked at money.
Yeah.
I just looked at it as a form of energy. And the more you pumped into the pool, the more things were going to go, vertically up.
Absolutely.
So, and then I thought to myself, well, if everything's going to rise, which it will, what will be the thing that rises the most in appreciation? Well, what's the most expensive thing that a person can buy, usually buys in their lifetime?
Usually a home.
Like, I'm talking about the average American. I'm not talking about supercar people and
For
stuff
sure.
like that. I'm talking about
that big mortgage, that 30-year term home. For
so
sure.
if hyperinflation is gonna occur, right, based on physics, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I based it on. If hyperinflation is gonna occur, I want to own the thing that's gonna go up the most in value.
Right.
And that was real estate.
That makes sense because like you're attaching it to an asset. Because let's just say hypothetically, right? Like the US dollar completely collapsed and there's a whole new currency, call it like Blue Man currency or like some sort of cryptocurrency.
Whatever they're creating in their basement.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But that piece of real estate is still gonna be valued at a certain amount.
Yeah.
Whatever that new, because that things happen. Like because we haven't seen it in America doesn't mean it can't happen, right? So if for any reason the US dollar did collapse completely, that piece of real estate is still worth something of value. Yeah. So it's very smart to put your money into those type of assets.
Just move your money out of a valueless thing and into something of value.
That was like a pivot for me because like most of my life, man, was like 9 to 5 corporate life, go to school, go to college. And I was taught at an early age, like save your money, save everything you have, save. Yeah. And it turns out when I meet more like people like yourself, entrepreneurs that have multiple businesses and other investors, they're like, I don't want no money in my bank account. And I was like, damn, like, what do you mean? Like, I thought the point is to make money. He's like, nah, I need that money working for me and create little money babies. Yeah. I was like, it was a shock for me. But now as an investor, as you know, I go throughout my months and my years, like it makes a lot of sense, man, for sure.
So this is a conversation that I've had with you, you know, off of mic, and I've had with Phil off of mic. And I remember talking to you about this, and the conversation was like, it's all fake. Yeah. So if it's all like if the money is all just being printed on like an Epson printer, you know what I'm saying? Like it's being printed on some kind of printer. I don't know what printer it is, but it's being printed on a printer, and it's all fake. And if it's all fake, I'll just take as much as I can, please.
That's the mindset right there,
right? Like,
and it's fake because it's not backed by gold anymore.
It's not backed by anything.
Once it was backed by something, it made sense. Like, okay, it's worth.
Yeah.
Now
it was an actual commodity. Like there was there was something tied to that money. It was based on something. Yeah. Right.
But I think it was Richard Nixon, the president, that took it off the gold standard. I gotta look that up. You can fact check me. Bro.
Yeah. So that's just the mentality I have on it, and I've also had the conversation with Phil about just the abundancy. There's just so much printing that's happened and that will continue to happen, that we're living in such an abundant world that it makes absolutely zero sense to have a limited mindset. It doesn't make logical. It's a logic fail. Yes. To have that kind of mentality. Yeah. So
I 100% agree.
That's how I got in. That's how I started pushing back into real estate.
It was COVID. That's how you really got heavy into.
Well, I was gonna get in no matter what. Right. Like I always knew that's where I was gonna end up. Right. I was gonna end up doing more of that, but the catalyst, the expediter, right, was it was COVID.
Now, quick question for you. Talking about like off of real estate and like your businesses, like during COVID, did you see like a spike in your sales too because of like a lot of money being pumped into the system?
Absolutely. Yeah. So they were attempting to prop up the economy by stimulating it, by pushing dollars into the system. Right? It was like, think of it as like there's a chemical called pitocin
Mm.
when a woman is not going into labor
Okay.
as fast as she needs to be, or as fast as a doctor recommends. And pitocin is an inducer,
Wow.
and it induces her to have contractions to go into labor.
It's a natural chemical.
I believe that the body creates natural pitocin. You know, I'm not the, Phil will probably know a little bit more about it. He's more of the biological person. I'm not.
Yeah.
But I only know this because I got 4 kids.
Gotcha.
So because I have 4 kids, I've seen how that process works.
Right.
So I'm making the comparison to pitocin because they were trying to induce the economy into not collapsing.
Wow.
Yeah, because you're inputting fear into an economy,
Yeah.
right? Like
People losing. Like I lost my job then.
Yeah,
I had a great stable job.
Yeah.
And I got a call one day. It's like, hey, Kareem, hang out after work real quick. I have to call you. There's like 8 of us.
Yeah.
Boom. Managers included got wiped out.
You're doing 2 things simultaneously throughout COVID. This conversation on COVID probably should be on the top of our list right now because we're like having a COVID conversation. Right. So they did 2 things at one time. Super interesting, right? They induced fear, large amounts of irrational fear into the system. They introduced an excessive amount of fear into the system, right? And then in order to counteract the fear that they induced large sums of money. So there was like, y'all probably gonna all die. But hey, guess what? Here's a lot of money to help support you in that process.
Very interesting time.
It's fucking loony. Like it was just didn't make any sense. And for me, looking at it, I'm a very logical person.
Right.
Like none of it made any sense.
Right.
So I'm seeing a large, excessive amounts of fear being introduced into the system. And when you introduce fear into a system, you have reservations on economic spending. Okay. Let's say you have an economy or a country where you're introducing excessive amounts of fear. Do you think that somebody's going to go out and buy a 60-inch TV while they're afraid for what's going to happen to their family?
They want to hoard as much money as they can.
Absolutely. Yep. So economic spending contracts or shuts down depending on the excessive amount of fear. So you have like a large amount of fear that's being pushed down people's throats. There's a lot of insecurity, a lot of unknowns, and people are just staying. They're asking people, aka telling people, to stay home. Right? They're basically telling a lot of businesses that you can't operate. You need to comply to what CDC standards were at the time.
A lot of great businesses are no longer in business because of it.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And then at the same time, they're saying, don't worry about it though. We have a solution for all the fear that we're inducing. We're going to just give people money.
Yep.
We're gonna prop up unemployment. We're going to create business loans and all of these things. And we're gonna deliver lots of low cost money.
Yes.
Inexpensive money into the system. Right? So when they did that and they created the fear, people had to stay home. Mm-hmm. And then they had money. So what are people that have to stay home and have money going to do?
Shopping online.
Yep. That's all they could,
That's why, look at Amazon, dude.
He crushed. My man crushed and retired. Right after that. He was like, let me get this money real quick. And then he was like, I'm out of here, guys. He took his money.
He took a step back, right? From like the head of Amazon at the time.
Dude, his timing was superb.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He made his money and that's it. And it's going to be very hard to hit those numbers.
Yeah. Because
it's irrational. You know who Alan Greenspan is?
No.
He was a Fed chairman, I think. Two Fed chairmen before this one.
Okay.
I believe. Don't quote me on this. But he has a quote that just keeps, again, there's things that just stick in my head. It just, for whatever reason, they're sticky. Yeah. They just stay in my mind. He has a quote, if online, when you get a chance, you check it out. He says it's excessive exuberance. Excessive exuberance is just like unrealistic excitement about an economy or about a situation.
What was his name?
Alan Greenspan. And that's the way, that's a term. It's like a famous term that he used to describe, you know, the stock market and the real estate market. Actually, it was a real estate market before the collapse.
Right.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing here says irrational exuberance refers.
There you go. Right. Irrational exuberance
refers to investor enthusiasm that drives asset prices higher than those assets' fundamentals justify.
So there was irrational exuberance in spending.
Wow.
People were irrationally spending money, and businesses that were there to capture that irrational exuberance did well. And if you were not there to capture it, you were, a spectator. That's what it was.
During COVID times, I was one of those consumers. Yeah,
I think a lot of people were.
It was very interesting times, man, because like I'm working, Comcast, or I'm sorry, not Comcast, just like my engineering job, telecommunications, and I was getting paid more to be unemployed than to work. It was insane.
How does that? What do you when you say that out loud? What do you think?
I think it was a chapter in my book. I'm such a different person now because I don't know how much I can kind of put out there, but it was pretty much like an extended vacation in a way.
Yeah.
Of course, once jobs started opening back up, things changed. But that first initial like several months, years and whatnot.
Yeah.
Very interesting time, man.
But you said something that's very interesting that a lot of Americans went through. You said that they paid you more to stay home than you could have made doing your job.
Literally. I could have worked 40 hours a week and made less versus stayed home, and I made more from the government. It's crazy.
That is very irrational.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once that dried up, I was like, okay, wait.
Now what?
I gotta, yeah. And that's how I got into wholesaling. I'm glad that happened.
Yeah.
It was a dark time, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
because the high was high and the low was low.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no light without the dark, man.
Yeah.
For sure.
So that's how I got back into real estate.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I always had an interest in it.
Absolutely.
So that COVID was a catalyst.
Yeah.
Right? And then we find ourselves here.
Let's fast forward. So 2024 right now, interest rates are at an all-time high, at least in recent years and whatnot.
They're coming down, but yeah.
Let's talk about it, right? So with mortgage rates potentially falling, what'd you say, 90% sure, 100% sure, like that they're falling pretty soon?
Well, can we pull up where mortgage rates are right now?
Yeah.
So what the indicator of where mortgage rates are going to be is that there's an underlying wholesale number for interest rates.
Okay.
I think that's the Fed rate. Phil, what's the name of that? It's the it's like the Federal Reserve rate. Yeah. Whatever the label that they throw on it is. It's basically the rate that banks pay to borrow money.
Gotcha.
So they buy money. I think it's the 5-year or the 7-year Treasury note. And then they tag on a few points and turn around and sell that on the retail market.
Absolutely.
So I think right now it's under 6, right?
Yeah, it's right under 6. I'm seeing like 5.25 to like 5.5. That's when that wholesale term sense, right? You're saying
that's a 7-year Treasury.
Okay.
It's basically a 7-year or 5-year Treasury. And the way that I've come to understand that they peg mortgages, excuse me, they peg mortgages to a 7-year or a 5-year rate. The reason why they do that is because most homeowners change homes every 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
So you essentially get a restart on a mortgage every 7 years.
Yeah.
Americans buy a house and then they move every 7 years.
Right.
So that's why they use that 7-year rate.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was unaware of that, but so they peg mortgage rates to that Treasury note, that 7-year or 5-year note.
Right.
So that right now I think is the cheapest it's been in the last 12 months.
Okay.
So that the rates are falling. The question now is, if rates are falling,
how does that affect real estate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you ever throw a stone in a pond? As a kid, you just throw a stone in a pond.
I like to skip the stones.
Perfect. Okay, great. So when you skip a stone, the stone hits the water and there's a reverberation.
Right.
Right? It's like a butterfly effect.
Yes.
Right? The stone hits the water and it reverbs across that pond.
Right.
That's what rates do.
Wow.
So as rates fall or incline, they decline or incline, they have an effect either way.
Right.
As rates fall, if you reverse engineer it, what does that mean? That has an effect not just on real estate, it has an effect on everything.
Let's talk about it.
Well, it has I mean, it has an effect on borrowing, business borrowing. It has an effect on consumer credit cards.
Yeah.
Consumer credit cards are pegged to, Fed rates. Mortgage rates are pegged to Fed rate. Everything is going off of what it costs to borrow money.
Yeah.
And the Federal Reserve, they are the ones that set that rate.
Very interesting.
So if we're looking at this right now if we're reverse engineering rates falling in 2024 and what the effect, if we're looking forward at 2025 and we're trying to understand what is 2025 or the end of 2024 look like based on federal rates going down, based on interest rates going down, well, what comes to mind?
I'd say cheaper rates, of course, means just cheaper money in the market.
Right.
So I'd say more velocity of purchases, right?
Yeah.
Buying real estate, buying
more activity.
cars. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, triple net leases, things like that. I'll be honest. I mean, I don't know triple net leases that well.
Yeah.
I just know that like it's a big commercial term and whatnot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's something we could dive into. But
yeah,
I would imagine that's how it, it's just the velocity of it.
Well, you're right. You're right. If rates are lower, businesses are spurred.
Right.
When the cost to borrow money is cheaper, then businesses are going to be more likely to borrow money.
Yes.
Right? If you just follow the logic. Now, all of that makes sense in a vacuum. But we're not living in a vacuum.
That's true.
We're living in a dynamic world. So yes, the cost to borrow money is going down, right? But we also have an election. Right? What is that?
Another factor.
Right? There's insecurity.
Yeah.
And then also unemployment is on the way up. Right? You have more, I think Trump put out he put up a post the other day, like 800,000 new unemployed people in America. You can double check that. But the point that I'm making is rates are going down, which means home ownership is less expensive. Car buying is less expensive. Business loans are less expensive. The cost of goods are less expensive. But if you have an economy, in order for somebody to pay for that, they still have to have a job. So if you're making $0, you know what I'm saying? If you're unemployed completely, I'm not talking about unemployment. I'm talking about unemployed completely. Does it matter if that house is $200 cheaper?
No, it doesn't.
Probably
Still
not.
Can't afford nothing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Does it matter that car is like 20% less? No, you still need employment.
Right.
So
still need income. Yep.
I think what this is saying more than anything to me, what it screams to me is the Fed is realizing that pumping up rates, they knee-jerk reacted. I think they raised rates very, very quickly, they went
aggressively.
up aggressively.
Yeah.
And they went up so aggressively in order to deflate the economy. And now that they've deflated the economy, I think the inflation report was at 2.9 last I checked. You're at 2.9% inflation on the economy. Now they're starting to think, okay, we're getting the intended effect. How much more pressure are we going to put on this economy before you start seeing the pipes burst?
Right.
And you've already seen the pipes burst. The symptoms of the pipes bursting, right? Those are the banks that are failing. That's Silicon Valley Bank.
Wow. So these tech banks, would you say, or like tech derived banks, Silicon Valley and all that?
It's not even that they're tech banks. It's just banks that are in a bad position.
Right.
Republic Bank just got bought out by Fulton. They just got liquidated.
Yeah.
I think they bought them up, took them over, whatever it was.
So these like red flags right now of those pipes bursting, you would say.
When you're renovating a property, there's a pressurization of plumbing pipes that needs to occur.
Okay.
You pressurize the pump, the waste lines in order for those leaks not to be visible.
Gotcha.
So you fill the pipes with water, right? Mm-hmm. And you cap off every exit and you pressurize it.
You test the pressure.
And you test the pressure and you see if there's any leaks anywhere.
Wow.
What you're seeing in the economy is leaks.
I see what you mean.
You're seeing unemployment rising quickly. You're seeing banks fail.
Almost sounds like 2008.
You're seeing consumer spending like consumer spending is crazy right now, dude. It's slowed down a lot.
I heard that credit card consumer debt is like all-time high right now.
You're seeing consumer credit cards at an all-time high. You're seeing things in the economy that are pointing to symptoms of pipes bursting. Now, if you are the Federal Reserve Chairman, Powell, and you have your finger on the button on whether or not to keep the pressure on or take the pressure off, you have a responsibility.
Right.
You're seeing the reports. You have. I mean, you think we got data? What do we got? You talking about the Federal Reserve, man?
Yeah.
They got metadata, micro data. They got data we don't even know about.
For sure.
They're looking at. I don't know if they're deciphering the data correctly, and they're still human.
Right.
I don't know what
they're looking at trends.
They have access.
Yeah.
Like
that's all you can say.
They have access. They have to have access. They have everybody feeding them. They have to have access. So they have information that is available to them. There's symptoms there. They have to act.
Gotcha. They're
not reducing the rate because they think it's time for people to buy houses. They're reducing the rate because there's symptoms that are pointing to a problem that'll be vastly worse than inflation. 2.9 inflation.
I see. So you have like a train going too fast at first and they're trying to slow it down. So it's like a nice steady speed, but they might F around and derail the train.
It may flip the train.
Might flip that thing, straight chaos.
Yeah. You put the brakes on this train. It was going 70 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. It's a freight liner. And you just seize up the brakes.
Right.
You know, you just seize the brakes. And then
what could happen next? Who knows?
And the symptoms you're feeling on that train are like rumbling.
Yeah.
And loud noises.
Yeah.
You know, and kids that are on the train that are scared. And parents that are like, we should have never taken this train. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many symptoms on the train.
Panic, yeah.
You know, and you're looking out the window and you're seeing.
Especially banks going under, man. Like, that's a serious red flag.
I think anybody right now, you know, it's tough, man, because I don't like to be like an alarmist type of person.
Right.
But I'm a realist. And if you know me, you know, you've only known me for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. You know, there's other people that know me. I don't like to raise the alarm unless there's an alarm to raise.
Right.
It's very concerning.
Based off of truth and therefore logic.
It's 100. I mean, I don't have the data that they have.
Right.
I'm not an expert in the field, but I'm concerned.
For sure.
Yeah.
You have a lot of experience under your belt. So you as a real estate investor, how are you pivoting?
That's a perfect question.
What are you doing now?
2008, 2009, 2010. When there was an economic correction, when the real estate market seized, it seized because of a lack of funding. There wasn't enough liquidity in the market in order to supply real estate demand. Banks stopped lending. Okay, we have an economic situation that's very different now. You know what I'm saying? So you can't you can't just say, well, this happened 10 years ago, 12, 15, whatever. It's going to happen again. I'm not sure about that, but I do think that there are some similarities.
Right.
There's some things that make me question what's going on. So you're asking me personally, like, how am I reacting to this?
Yeah.
In 2008, I was reading 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010. I was trying to figure out where the puck was going to go. So I was looking at storage facilities. I was looking at investing into storage facilities.
Were you like cash heavy at this time? You knew where the market was going?
No, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
I was not cash heavy. If I was cash heavy, I would have made different decisions.
I see.
I would have followed my gut.
Wow.
Yeah. There's also, I think, opportunities in rentals. I think there's going to be a lot of rental opportunities. Right. I think there's going to be a lot of storage opportunities. I think we're moving into a leasing economy.
So it's a good time to be a landlord.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know, I can't really call it like that. I can't really say if you're a landlord and you have tenants that can't pay because they don't have jobs, is it a good time to be a landlord?
I see what you mean.
I think that there's going to be some correction in the real estate market. It may not be in the next 6 months. I don't know how well this is going to age. You know, I'm just telling you how I feel right now.
Yeah.
For sure. But
no one has a crystal ball.
Nobody has a crystal ball. But I do think that there's going to be a correction in the real estate market. There's a correction on everything.
Right.
Why real estate is not impervious to corrections. And I think that's a mistake that people make too. For whatever reason, they point to real estate and say, this is like the Superman of economy. Yeah. You know, like it can't be touched. Yeah, but Superman had kryptonite.
There you go.
Everything has a weakness.
Yeah.
Right. So
I like that.
If I think things are going to move in a different direction in terms of valuation.
Yeah.
I think long term, if you're holding real estate long term, you're good. And I think if your market value, if you're not over market value and you're appealing to necessity based rentals,
right?
I think you're
like
good.
Affordable housing, Section 8s, things like that.
That's how I'm moving.
So you got to buy low, man. Got to buy discounted.
I think when things get tough, people buy less Rolls Royces, and they buy more Hondas. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, 100%. And I think people buy what they need instead of what they want. Yeah, and I think I want to be in the next. I think the next 1 to 2 years, I want to be in the need-based business in real estate.
I like that.
Housing, you need to live somewhere. Just because the economy is not good doesn't mean they're going to be out on the streets. That's not going to be it.
So talk to me about fix and flips, right? Like, people need a house they want to buy, but would you say that's more glamorous? It's not as need-based as affordable housing?
I think the days of people paying like 50 over listing and 70 over like
full packed out open houses.
Excessive exuberance.
I like that.
Excessive exuberance.
It's coming from you. How many
irrational exuberance.
Irrational exuberance.
Irrational exuberance.
It's coming from you.
I'm on the receiving side of irrational exuberance. I'm telling you, it's irrational exuberance.
How many flips were you just involved in? I should say.
A lot. You know what I'm saying? I have friends that flip a lot more than me. I have friends that flip a lot less than me.
Right.
A lot.
Right.
But I saw.
You're very successful at it.
Yeah.
You know where the puck is moving.
I try to know where the
I try to know where
the puck is moving.
Anticipate that.
That's your job as an investor.
Exactly.
So I think we're heading into a very interesting time. Right. So rates going down doesn't necessarily mean housing prices are going to go up, because we're not living in a bubble. I see. Just because affordability is better doesn't mean there's somebody to pay for it.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? If a Rolls Royce is $2,000 a month right now and rates go down and it's $1,500, do you have the $1,500?
That's a great point, man.
I don't know. Like,
because
you may actually have been better off with the 2,000 in an economy that's roaring.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. That makes a lot of. I didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah.
Because I always heard that, right? Like, hey, rates gonna drop, therefore demand's gonna go up, and
demand,
profits gonna
demand
be priced
does
out
go
crazy.
Up. Yeah.
But can people afford it though?
Demand does go up, but you have to factor affordability and the status of the economy into the equation. Yeah. That's why this stuff is so complicated, man. I mean, there's people that are their job is to analyze market trend. I do this for fun. Yeah. I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I just enjoy it. But there's a lot of complexity. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You have to include political instability. You have to include economic instability. You have to include climate. You have to there's algorithms and formulas that give you an idea of where the economy is going. And
I wouldn't say you're doing it for fun. Like, you're an investor. You're in the business of making money.
You're right. I'm using the data in order to make a decision.
For sure.
But I'm not a paid analyst.
For sure. Exactly.
I'm a self-paid analyst.
Yeah.
Nobody's cutting me a check for doing the thinking.
Right.
I'm thinking because my life depends on it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
100%. Awesome, man. So we kind of touched on that second topic there, right? Like, demand for Section 8. Do you think it's going to go up now? Affordable housing, government paying out, for rentals?
That's a great point. So this goes back to what we just said, right? If we're gonna segue into Section 8 housing and where the rates of return on Section 8 housing go, I guess the question you need to ask yourself is, will the government stop spending money on Section 8 housing? Do you think in the next 5 years, just like take a bird's eye, I like to do this exercise, right? Yeah. Step back, take a bird's eye view on the next 5 years. Do you see Section 8 housing being a government program that the government says we could no longer fund? We're closing up shop and walking away. Do you feel like that's a big? There's probably some likelihood that will happen.
I think it's very unlikely.
It's very unlikely. I agree. I think it's very unlikely.
I think it's becoming a renter's nation in general.
I think if Section 8 shuts down and stops paying, we have some major issues in the United States. Yeah. And your rent is the last on the list.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if that's the case.
And real quick, like even from my perspective, like my first year of wholesaling, hedge funds were big, man. People were
buying up.
Yeah, they were paying like 90% ARV on properties. And now they're not around. But they still have that bag, that whole portfolio of properties, right? So with that being said, I feel like they're making it less affordable. Like they're creating rental properties for their own portfolio. They're not doing it to kind of like resell to create home ownership. If that makes sense.
I want to come back to hedge funds.
Yeah.
Because I think that's an important topic that a lot of people misconstrued an investor with a hedge fund. The people that are driving up prices in the United States are not your guy that's flipping 20 properties a year.
Right.
Matter of fact, he's beautifying the neighborhood.
Right. 100%.
You know what I'm saying? I think the people that are driving up prices are these hedge funds with limitless amounts of cheap money, even in any economy.
Right.
I mean, it's more expensive now for them just because that's where money is.
Yeah.
But
that's why they're not super active as they were a year and a half ago.
Yes. So I want to come back to hedge funds. Yeah. But to go back to your question about Section 8, so if rates go down, the cost to borrow is less, but the cost to also, the benefit to lend is less. Okay, so like I'll give you an example. Let's say you were getting 5% in a CD.
Okay.
If rates go down.
For people that might be brand new, what's the CD exactly?
It's basically an account where you put money into in a bank.
Yeah.
And you know, they limit the access that you have to that money for a certain amount of a period of time, and they guarantee you an interest rate.
Okay.
So they tell you, look, if you leave this money in here for 6 months to a year, we'll give you X amount of percentage on it, 5% on it. And then in that period, you can take, you'll pay a penalty if you come take the money out.
I gotcha.
So if rates go down, CDs are going to pay less. So you putting your money in the bank, you're going to get a lower rate of return, right? So as rates go down, what becomes more valuable?
Just assets in general.
Assets in general, but assets that produce a higher rate of return become more valuable.
So cash flowing assets.
They become more valuable.
Wow.
Because they're, like, let's say you have an asset that puts out 20%, right? Let's say every year it kicks you back 15, 20%. Let's just use a nice round number, 20%.
Right.
If rates go, if the amount that a bank pays you is five for like a guaranteed 5, and then it goes down to 3, that 20 looks a lot better.
Looks a lot better.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
like you're getting half of what you were gonna get.
Yeah.
So I think those type of that class of investment becomes more valuable. Now,
that's a great point.
There's another thing that makes it more valuable. If the economy slows down and middle America is affected, middle America still has to live somewhere. Is middle America going to go out and buy $1 million home? Or is middle America going to move the family to where they can afford to move the family?
Those affordable locations.
So you have more of a pressure on affordable housing.
Right.
Not less.
Right.
So
that's true demand that can happen.
It's need-based housing. Affordable housing is not luxury housing.
Yeah.
Affordable housing is I need to live somewhere with my kids.
Period.
So if you have an economic slowdown and it's driving it's driving demand to that asset class becomes a lot more valuable.
Yep.
So now you have a higher rate of return and a demand that's being propelled by an economic shift. I don't see how that asset class is not more valuable.
Absolutely.
Like, I just don't. Now, if you add to it government programs funded by Section 8, now it's even more stable asset class.
Yeah.
So you as an investor, you're looking at the economy's going haywire. Section 8 is paying out guaranteed $1,200, $1,300.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of people that are waiting to get into this program getting a voucher.
So there's demand to get a voucher.
There's economic demand, and the rates are better.
So therefore, you as an investor, you have options of who you want as a tenant because you have a whole pool of tenants.
I like the asset class right now in this economic instability.
Okay.
I want to take a defensive posture. So there are times where I'm offense driven, right, and sometimes too offense driven. You can ask Phil about that. And then there are times where I'm defense driven.
Okay.
And I feel bearish, not bullish on the market right now.
What's some exit strategies that you have when you're offensive in like a healthy economy?
I'm going to buy. I'm gonna
fix
buy
and
aggressively.
flips.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm gonna buy middle America. I'm gonna buy mid to high. You know, if an average home in New Jersey is 400,000, I'm gonna buy.
Right.
I'm gonna flip that house. I'm gonna
Right.
push the envelope. I'm gonna go into that asset sector.
Right. Set new ARVs and things like that.
Yeah, but if I feel like
Where we're at now.
there's price suppression
Yeah.
because of economic instability, I don't know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So get cash flowing assets, get cash heavy as much as you can
Yeah.
to buy, because right now, market's cheaper.
Yeah.
Like there's properties that's selling for a lot cheaper than they were a year and a half ago, for sure.
There-
Depends on your market.
Depends on the
course.
market.
Like Washington D.C., that's a whole different ball game story.
It really, you're making that statement, and you're exactly
specific.
right. It's very market specific.
Yeah.
I guess that the Section 8, I feel bullish on Section 8, bearish on Middle America,
Yeah.
bearish on the stock market, incredibly bearish on the stock market.
Yeah.
Very, very nervous about the stock market.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why so? Just look at it.
I don't know, man. There's all signs are pointing to some issues.
Right.
And, you had a 20, like the other day, it was like a huge drop. And
I heard
everybody was
something
just
that in
like,
the news, yeah.
I guess that didn't happen. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
nobody's looking at that as, my man just coughed up blood. You should probably go to the doctor.
Right.
Like that is a symptom, right? Like if you're with your friend and you're at and he just coughed up blood, you'd be like, dude, you probably should go see a doctor.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like this dude there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we should probably pay attention to
I
this.
see what you mean.
So,
You have
but
to pay attention, man.
everybody in the room is just like, yeah, let's just keep hanging out.
You have to be perspicacious, man. That's like my new favorite
I
word
like that.
lately.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention to what's going on around you, especially because at the end of the day, man, when you're investing, it's your money.
Yeah.
There's a risk involved. There's inherited risk with this.
Yeah.
Whether it's, cars, gold, real estate. It's inherited risk, and you have to make good decisions, man.
You don't get
could
to say
wrecked.
you don't get to say sorry. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
Lost it.
Yeah.
You take an L.
Yeah, you take an L.
For sure. What's some good states or areas to buy
This
Section
is
8
perfect.
rentals?
Perfect segue. So let's recap.
Yeah.
Middle America is getting pressurized,
Okay.
right? We have an economic slowdown, right? This is the logic behind my decisions,
Right.
right? Do you stay and wait for the bloodbath, or do you take your investments out elsewhere?
I see.
You take your investments elsewhere if you're a logical person.
Right.
You take your investments out elsewhere and you go where it's safe. You go where there's an umbrella of security for the next period of time,
Right.
right? That depends on what's going on to say how long that period is going to be. If you're going to go into Section 8, now you have to decide what Section 8 markets are going to be a great rate of return.
Yes.
And there are Section 8 markets, by the way, in New Jersey that are a great rate of return.
For sure.
There's places in Camden that you're going to get a great rate of return. There's places in Trenton.
It's a large state, man.
It's a very large state, very interesting
A lot
state.
of towns.
There's Millville, there's Bridgeton, there's Atlantic City, there's all, the
Right.
state is filled with places. But in my opinion, I still think those places are overvalued.
Okay.
Compared to
From your
where we were.
experience.
Yeah. I think they're overvalued. Credit to you, you've exposed me to this in the last 2 years a little bit more. Where I find that it's incredibly interesting is out-of-state investing.
Yeah.
Places like Detroit. Somebody brought up
Midwestern markets, yeah.
even Southern, Savannah, Bama, Alabama.
Absolutely.
North
Your North Carolina's.
Carolina,
pretty solid market
pockets
state.
of North Carolina.
Yeah.
Red states, landlord-friendly states.
That's my next question. Yeah, talk about it.
Landlord-friendly states, eviction rules are in the favor of the landlord. We're talking specifically from the perspective of an investor right now.
That's it.
Right? If you're an investor, you want a state that's friendly to you as a landlord.
Right.
So you want to move into those states as an investor because it makes sense.
Absolutely.
If you have a tenant not paying or destroying your property or causing some problems, you want to be able to evict quickly.
You know what doesn't make sense? When you buy a house in a blue state, so to speak, and you put your money into it, you take out a loan, you secure the property, someone kicks in your door, and now they have squatter rights. And you legally, as a homeowner, cannot remove the person preventing you from monetizing that property. This is real life. This is real life in certain states, man. So it's very crucial to understand where you're investing, becoming a landlord in.
It's a clown. It's clown world.
It's wild.
It's clown world.
You own the property.
Yeah.
You're the one paying that monthly mortgage.
Yes.
And someone's just hanging out.
Not just paying the monthly mortgage. You have a responsibility to keep utilities on. Ooh. You have to insure it.
Yeah. You're paying insurance, property taxes.
Yeah.
But you don't have the right to.
You have certain costs that you have to incur by maintaining that property where you have a squatter in there.
Insane.
But I think that the tide is shifting. The clown mentality is ending.
Yeah.
Which is great. Which is great.
That's great optimism. That's good.
Yeah, which is great. At least in that area.
Yeah.
Right? So you asked me like where out of state makes sense.
So red
states, tenant, landlord friendly red states, where there's good Section 8 programs, where there's a healthy out of state investment market. Toledo's huge. Detroit is huge. Savannah's a great area.
Yeah.
You know, somebody put me onto that, you know, through a conversation.
Yeah. I was just on Zillow in Savannah. I was like, man, I'd move here. Like,
it's beautiful.
Something about the architecture down there.
It's beautiful.
Very nice.
So you have a bunch of these pockets. I think Pittsburgh is one of them. Yeah. I'm not sure. Yep. Pittsburgh. I've never done anything there, but
I've heard it's a pretty solid market.
Where else have you heard?
Milwaukee, man. Wisconsin, that state, I heard is great. A lot of multi-family investments, buy and hold.
Yeah.
Chicago, you know, you got to know what you're doing for sure. But I heard Chicago, like I have a great friend.
I think Chicago is more blue though, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't just take a dart and throw it on the board by any means.
Yeah,
like,
do your diligence.
Have to, man.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
You know.
So you get more for your money in these towns.
That it makes sense, right? So from a logic standpoint, so say you go to like Michigan, like a Detroit area, and you're buying properties under 50K turnkey, but rents are increasing every year. So you're still buying low for now, but rents are increasing. So your cash on cash return naturally increases.
It's not just your rents are increasing. You have appreciation capture.
That's big.
You have you have rental increase, you have appreciation capture, you have. Okay, let's go back to the macro economics.
Okay.
Do you feel like there's going to be another pandemic?
I think I think it's on the table.
Okay. So
monkeypox.
Okay. So if you feel like there's another pandemic, then the areas that have seen hyperinflation are going to continue to see hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Are they going to see the same rate of hyperinflation? No, they may dip.
Right.
And then you see another example of a pandemic, and then all of a sudden people migrate out of these areas again, aka Texas, Florida. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think if you're taking a protectionist approach, like if you're trying to guard and safeguard your investments, these areas, I feel like these areas.
That's what's important, man. To be successful as an investor, right? You have to have control over the whole situation.
Yes, you
have to.
That's sometimes harder.
As much as you can. Though.
That's sometimes harder said than done. But I think you got to look at the. You got to try to look at it from a bird's eye view.
For sure. What if somebody right now, they might be getting squeezed right now by the economy. They're tired of paying exuberant amount of rent every month. Because by the way, paying rent is 100% of just paying interest. You're financing someone else's mortgage. So for the homeowners, people that honestly my age and mid-20s, late 20s that want to have home ownership, but they might be priced out in some areas. What are some good areas to house hack? And explain what is house hacking to begin with.
How old are you now?
27.
I think I bought my first property when I was like 26, 25, like around that age.
Nice.
Right around your age.
Yeah.
Right? What I would do is what I did. I would buy a property, a distressed property, fix it, put sweat equity into the property, learn how to. There's such a value, an incredible amount of knowledge that comes with understanding how to do something. Even if you make all the mistakes in the world, it's like you're paying tuition.
Right.
It's like you're going to university and you're teaching yourself.
Yeah.
So you're investing in you. Even if you make a mistake, even if things go not as the way you planned, you dust yourself off and you keep going. Right?
That's the only way, man.
That's it. That's life. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Nothing in life goes perfect the way you expect. Some things go wrong. That's life.
That's how I got into wholesaling. It's like I'm gonna make mistakes. I know I will because I suck. I'm brand new.
That's it.
Give yourself grace and you'll make it to the other side.
You just deal with it. and that's the way life is.
Absolutely.
So if I was 27 right now, how would I move? I would definitely buy a duplex.
Yeah.
I would try to buy a quad.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would buy something where I had multiple streams of income, and I would try to like have a situation where I'm basically living for free.
Right.
And then when I'm living for free, now I have the income to make other investments.
Right.
I have to learn. I get to learn. The biggest mistake you can make, honestly, when you're 27, is lock yourself into a house you can't afford.
That's you
You know what
one single family home that's super priced out.
By the way,
completely furnished.
that's what I sell.
Yeah.
So like, I just want to make sure you understand that.
Right.
Like that's what people want.
Yeah.
But that's not what's best for people.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised on how many properties that we see go on the market, and there are duplexes, and people just don't, they don't want to live with somebody else.
Right.
They don't want to live like they don't want a job. Like a lot of people, it's not really common that people want to deal with tenancy.
Yeah. I can understand that, but at some degree you have to suck up your pride, man, because it's a stepping stone.
The thing about it is you don't.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Why not?
Because a lot of people don't.
That's true.
They don't. They don't have to. They choose not to. They get a single family house. They pay that mortgage. They split it with their wife, and they live there for 7 years, and then go do it again, and again and again and again.
Whatever works for them, man.
I mean, listen.
There's no right or wrong way in life for sure, but
it's not the way I would live.
Yeah.
But this is the way that some people
especially
live.
for somebody that wants to get into real estate, it's a great way.
If you're an investor, that's a losing formula, because you're not capturing the best value for your investment.
Right. Speak about because you get more benefits as like an FHA because you're living in the property still.
Yeah.
So you're getting very competitive mortgage rates compared to like a standard investment loan.
And you get FHA for a 4-unit too, up to 4 unit. You know that, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, you can get 4 unit. You get a duplex, a tri.
Yeah.
You can fund those kind of units and get.
So FHA offers lower down payments and lower interest rates in general, right?
Yeah,
comparative to investment loans.
FHA is like I believe it's a government program. It's a Federal Housing Administration. What they do is they insure your loan to the bank.
Right.
So by insuring your loan to the bank, you as a buyer don't need to put as much equity into the purchase.
Gotcha.
So they allow you to buy into the house for like 3.5% down, but you usually have to pay like a PMI principal.
Yeah.
It's like an insurance that you buy in case you default.
100%.
Yeah.
So you could have like, for instance, like for example, you could buy like a $200K house. Let's say for easy numbers, like you're paying a mortgage PITI of $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
But you're charging like $750 for the other 3 units. Like,
yeah.
So you're paying your mortgage off and you're making profit just by living in the house. And then once you move out, that 4th unit, you can put another tenant and now you're cash flowing.
Yeah. So
that's called leverage right there.
If right now I'm talking to the 27-year-old version of me, first of all, I would tell him you're right. Double down on you.
Dope.
Like that's the first thing I would say. Don't worry about what anybody else has to say. Just double down on you.
Oh, that's a gem right
That's
there.
like the first thing I would say. Then I would say, go get that house, but buy yourself a duplex. And then rent out your unit. And then sometime in the future, when you're ready to buy, when you have kids and you're ready to buy your house, you go buy. But sitting there paying rent indefinitely, unless you're not sure about where you're going to live, then it doesn't make sense to buy.
Right. That's the benefit of like being able to
you can
balance
leave.
if you had to.
You can leave.
For sure.
You got people like Grant Cardone who will tell you don't ever buy a house.
Right.
Like
there's arguments against it for sure.
There's arguments against it. But
FHA like require like a 1-year stay. Like 1 year flies by quick, man.
Yeah. I think for me, I would buy a duplex, a multi-unit.
Yeah.
I'd buy in a town like Hollingswood. I'd live
love
upstairs or downstairs. You know what I'm saying? If it was just me and my wife, we would live in one of the units and rent out the other unit and turn it into a cash flow property 2 years down the line, whatever the case may be. We have some kids. We rent out the other unit and go buy a house.
Cool.
That's what I would do.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So that covers that, man.
Yeah.
Next one here. Does an election impact the real estate business, man? We're how many months out? We're August. We're a few months out from the election, the presidential election in 2024.
Bro,
it's wild right now.
I don't think there's any aspect of the economy that this election does not impact. I think this election impacts every aspect of the economy.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it impacts geopolitical, impacts the world.
Yeah.
It impacts domestic. It impacts real estate. I think it impacts every aspect. You know, you get these politicians, these BS politicians. Every year, every 4 years, every 2 years, whatever it is that comes in, they start with the bullshit again. You know, like, this is the most important election of your life. I've been hearing this shit my whole life.
Right.
You know, every 2 years is the most important election of my life. This one feels real. You know, I don't know what it could be the same bullshit. I don't know. It feels real to me.
But objectively looking at it, for sure.
Yeah, it does feel real. I think.
Why this is so impactful? Your opinion?
Everything's a mess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It feels like a mess.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like we're riding in rough waters, and you need a sea captain. Yeah. You don't need somebody that runs underneath the ship's, you know, the hull of a ship when there's stormy weather.
Right.
You need a sea captain.
Right. You
need somebody that's gonna, you know, go down with the ship.
Not only do they run underneath, they take the planks off the wooden ship and sell it to other places for their own financial gain as a whole ship sinks. But that's a whole different story.
It's a completely different story. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think this election definitely impacts real estate. Yeah. If we're talking about real estate and we're talking about what impact this has on real estate, I think you know, the Don, he has his own perspective on things.
Right.
You know, he calls himself the king of leverage debt. This is quote unquote his words. Yeah. So he understands debt. Yeah. He claims to understand debt. Whatever your individual opinion is, and all that. You know, your political opinion is on the guy or the other side of that. It doesn't really matter. What I think what matters is what do you think he will do? I'm asking you. What do you think he will do? First 100 days in office with regards to the economy. Because if you're talking about real estate, you're talking about the economy. Real estate is, people don't buy homes if they don't have a job. They can't buy a home if they don't have a job. If you lose your job during the this just happened to me on one of my properties. If you're applying for a mortgage and you lose your job, you no longer qualify for a mortgage.
That's insane.
It is and it isn't. I mean, should people that don't have a job be buying houses?
But like the timing of that is crazy.
Yeah, the time.
Could you imagine that? Like you're in the process of buying your home and you lose your job,
and
therefore you lost your opportunity.
They're heartbroken.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. So
I couldn't even say, man. I couldn't even say exactly.
Can I tell you what I think he'll do?
Absolutely.
I think first 100 days he puts excessive amounts of pressure on the Fed to push down rates. I think kind
of spark up the economy again.
Yeah. I think he puts the same kind of pressure on them as they did on rate hikes.
I see.
I think that the pendulum swings the other way.
Equal and opposite force right there.
Yeah, I think he reduces rates in order to spur economy. I think he increases by reducing the rate. You increase the money supply. You increase the economic liquidity in the market. I think he slows down immigration. Slowing down immigration means jobs in America for Americans in America. Okay, if you think about it like this, let's say you have 1 million jobs a year, correct? Mm-hmm. And if you stop people from coming in and taking those jobs, there's more of an economic demand for labor.
I see. I'll repeat that for me one time.
So let's just say you have 1 million jobs that are available in the United States.
Okay.
Let's just use a vacuum. Let's just say you have 1 million jobs available in the United States.
Right.
If you stop people from coming in to do those jobs still need to be done.
Yeah.
So now you have a labor
mechanics, plumbers, a lot of your tradesmen.
You have a labor force that you need to do the job.
Right.
So if you have a limited amount of labor and a lot of economic need, automatically the market decides the rate that you're going to have to pay for labor.
Right.
So labor becomes more valuable
because there's less skilled workers out there.
Less skilled workers.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I think he props up the economy by reducing rates, shutting down into people coming in. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? How he does that is going to be it's going to be a politicized thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I think there's things that he needs to do, you know, to make it more human for people to come into this country.
Right.
But you know, that's a different conversation. Trump is an interesting character, bro. You know what I'm saying? He speaks out of two sides of his mouth. You know, I think with regard to geopolitics and the crazy political spending that we're having, you know, in other parts of the world right now because of the wars that are going on. Yeah. I think on one side he says one thing, and then behind closed doors, he's saying, you know, we got to wind this thing down.
Right.
Whatever it is that you got going on, squash it.
Right. And that's one thing I've heard is like, never believe what a politician says.
I think he's saying what he needs to say in front of the camera, and then behind closed doors, he's probably going and he's having private meetings and he's saying, we're not going to, you're going to listen or not.
Yeah.
But you're going to need the money.
Absolutely.
So we can turn off the faucet. So if that happens, I think he can create stability by forcing people's hands in order to make decisions.
Right.
And he's an unstable person. I shouldn't say that. I don't think he's unstable. I think he's a rational actor that has irrational behavior. I think he acts out, but he's a rational actor.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't really think that going into it. I wasn't a big fan of this guy, and I'm still not really a big fan. But I understand. Like,
but objectively speaking,
I'm talking objectively,
like straight economy, business, all that.
I think he's a rational. He's a rational actor that acts out. You know, so if you watch what he says, if you listen to what he says, you think to yourself, this guy's a lunatic. But if you watch what he does, he's very pragmatic.
Yeah.
So if you're paying attention, that's the part that you have to respect.
Yeah. That's it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the actions is what you have to respect. You have to watch his actions. So I think in terms of geopolitics, I think people understand that this guy, he's going to do what he needs to do.
Right.
To make stability happen. So by having more stability in other parts of the world, you have more geostability.
Yeah.
You can't have prosperity without stability.
That's it. You
know what I'm saying? Like during World War II, the economies of all, like everybody involved was like, you had all male, you know, fighting age males fighting how productive is your country?
Right.
Let's say you're in the United States and you're shipping millions of people to fight a war. Where's your manufacturing?
Yeah.
You know, you have women doing men's jobs.
No, it's crazy.
In the United States. You can't say that now these days.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that is actually what happened.
Exactly.
You know, there was a lack of male, able-bodied males in the United States because they were fighting wars.
Yep.
So you don't have high economic development.
Yeah. After
World War II, there was an economic boom. Why? Because you had all of the labor force come back.
Yeah.
And you had highly trained military-aged personnel coming back to the United States.
A lot of experience.
To do work.
Yeah.
And they're trained to take orders.
Yeah.
What do you need when you're operating a factory? People that take orders. People that understand structure.
Absolutely.
So these people come back to the United States and they're able to economically boom. And I think you need stability and peace in order to do that.
Absolutely.
And I think as Americans, we take that for granted.
There's a lot of instability in the world.
It's a lot of instability, and it's
right now.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So I think he does a good job of creating the environment where things have to get done.
Right.
He applies like an odd amount of pressure, like just enough pressure to get the meeting with Kim Jong-un.
Right.
You know, but not create a war.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like he does that shit.
Nobody wins in a war, bro.
Yeah, but you got to think about it. Like nobody ever stepped foot in North Korea for like decades prior to Trump.
Yeah.
He creates a problem on Twitter with this guy talking about my button is bigger than yours and it works. Right? That's like the best tweet of all time. You know what I'm saying? He's like my he goes, my button is bigger than yours and it works. And then it goes from that to a meeting in North Korea and he's on
first president to step foot in North Korea. That's something to be said right there.
Yeah. So he applies just enough pressure to get him to that point.
To have world respect
in
that regard.
And that's the finesse. Yeah. That's the Trump finesse.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So geopolitically, I think he does that. Domestically with interest rates, I think he reduces rates by applying pressure. The border, I think he squeezes the border by doing exactly what he said he's going to do.
Yeah.
I think he wants an immigration policy that's
systematic.
That's systematic. What are the other talking points that he has? And we can try to dissect that and how that affects real estate.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think about it. I'm trying to think, like, if he doesn't make it into office, what's the flip side? What are we looking at?
I don't even want to think about it.
It's a coin flip, man.
More of this?
Yeah.
I don't see how more
deeper.
of this works out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The pipes are starting to burst. Like, what?
I know another talking point was bringing energy production back to America, which I think is big. The Keystone Pipeline,
Boom.
prime example.
Okay, so if that's a great point. If the United States, by the way, it's so interesting because we were like one of the biggest exporters of homegrown oil.
Right.
Like we was exporting millions of barrels of oil.
Right.
Either exporting or consuming. You know, that remains, like I don't want to say the wrong thing, but I know that we were producing our own oil to the tune of a couple million barrels.
Right.
That's a lot of oil, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think that during Trump, we were one of the biggest suppliers of, we were one of the biggest producers of oil, shale oil.
Wow.
So I think having our own oil, how is that a bad thing?
Turns out this whole EV kind of agenda didn't work out. We're still in cars. We're still buying oil from overseas now. So I don't understand the point of relocating, you know what I mean, our oil production. So
shout out to Elon. The thing about
Sure.
EVs is that's not going to be an overnight process.
Exactly.
Bro. You still got to burn gas and oil. There's still factories. You know, you go to a factory in the Midwest.
I wouldn't want to be on an EV plane right now.
I mean,
Imagine
the technology is not where, like,
yeah, so it needs to be
there's a lot of things that need to be converted in order for this to be a full scale thing.
Right.
But that's neither here nor there. The question is, how does oil production affect the economy? With more oil production, you have a more stable economy. You have cheaper oil prices with more supply in the market. Cheaper oil prices means less prices for Americans, means a better economy.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a win.
Yes.
What other talking points does this guy have?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
A war with Iran, not a good move. If we're talking about a negative on his side, I don't know. Like, I'm not understanding that part. You know what I mean? That maybe that's above my pay grade. I don't know. Right. I just don't see how another war is a win for us
at all.
You know, we're speaking from an American perspective.
I mean, from the military-industrial complex is a win for that aspect, that sector of the government, but for the people themselves, like
it's not a win if it's an uncontrolled scenario.
Yeah.
War is profitable. War is incredibly profitable. It's like one of the most profitable.
The corporation of America.
Yeah, this is like a well-documented, well-known thing. It's not new news, right?
Right.
But the amount of money is really dependent on whether or not you can live a stable, non-problematic life. Like
not even finances, bro. Like if it really breaks out, because World War II was under 100 years ago, and you were drafted out of high school.
Yeah,
to go storm beaches. Now, all respects to veterans and anybody that lost their life, but like
I
live in a different time right now.
I don't see Trump making that move. I think again, this is one of his things where he's beating his chest, but I don't think he plans on going to war. I don't think Trump sees a pressure cooker and says we should add some more pressure.
For sure.
I think Trump sees a pressure cooker and says, push the valve. If I don't get what I want, add a little bit of pressure. Release the valve. Add a little bit of pressure.
Right.
Release the valve. I think that's Trump. I don't think Trump is, there's a pressure cooker, keep going.
Right.
I don't think he does that.
Right now, man. I don't know. Look at the state of the world right now.
Yeah. So all of the things that you said, minus the Iran thing, I think prop up real estate.
Yeah.
What other talking points does this guy have? Minus the Iran thing.
Anything else you could think of?
I mean, he's funny as hell, dude. I think pure comedy. I think we could use some comedic relief right now.
For sure.
Right? I think he just having his face, just saying the craziest things that he says.
Oh, something very interesting. This again, guys, this is like all current events. So RFK Jr. now renounced that he's not running for president. He's joining up.
100% chess play.
Yeah, and I think he's trying to destabilize the monopoly on like healthcare, getting sick and being hooked on the pills
So
for the pharmacy. That's a big, huge.
That's a huge win for Trump.
Let me say something. Man, I was in Brazil like 10 months ago.
Yeah.
And the first thing that shocked me is the amount of elderly people, completely fit, walking, skinny. Nothing, no fat shaming or nothing, but like everyone was fit. It's like a fit lifestyle. It's because the food is not poisonous.
Yeah.
They're not making money off of sick people.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different here.
I think that was an incredibly smart move on
For sure.
on his part. I think RFK, just having him stand next to RFK makes him left. It makes him a center, a right, a conservative person with leftists around, like not left, but I would say middle,
right?
Independents around him.
Because RFK was he? He was independent. Right?
He was a Democrat.
Oh, beforehand, yeah, he was Democratic.
Yeah, but I think putting him in the cabinet, chess play
for sure.
Honestly, I would have liked to see RFK play a bigger role.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Yeah. But I think definitely,
and Elon is also part of the cabinet too, and creating EVs. That's a pretty left agenda in itself. So,
bro,
like, we're talking objectively here, man. This is not no right versus left, red versus blue. Just like America, how do we better this country, bro?
He's compiling like the Avengers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's compiling the Avengers of politics right now.
Absolutely.
With the exception of Vance. I think that was a L.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Why so? I'm curious.
I don't know. Like what value does the guy bring besides that, like that?
I don't know too much about him. Like, be honest.
I think he's a Peter Thiel, person. I think he's part of that group.
Yeah.
I think he's part of the tech sector. Right. And I think they put him in. I think he's part of that sector, and he's a conservative.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like. Usually, when you get a vice president pick that makes like great sense, you see a major jump. I don't know.
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong. I'm not looking at the polls. But I don't.
I mean, politics itself is so complicated, bro. But I understand how.
I don't see anything about that pick that was like spectacular pick.
Right.
I do see the RFK one as a spectacular move.
I agree.
And that wasn't a VP pick, but it was a spectacular move.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting times, man. We're a few months away from the election, so
let's
see what
happens. And it affects real estate a lot. So I think if he institutes a lot of these policies, we have economic stability and lower rates. Do we see massive super inflation that we did before? I don't think so. But I think at least we don't see a collapse.
Right.
And I think at least maybe we see that soft landing that they're talking about.
Right. That's a goal.
Yeah.
It's like COVID was a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
It was a rare case. They stimulated the economy. We all knew, like, we're handing out $1,200 stimulus checks and all that and whatnot. So now we're seeing the effects probably like a year ago of what that inflation was really hitting for.
Yeah.
Because it was great in the beginning, but it's an effect. It's a delayed effect. So
yeah,
very interesting.
So I think we hit on a lot of these topics, right?
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, I think this was a good conversation.
That was incredible, man.
Okay,
what do you think, Phil? Thumbs up.
Phil approves. Okay, so I'd like to do these a few more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd like to continue like the momentum.
Absolutely.
And then have some people on here that'll bring some insight.
Yep.
And some perspective.
Yep.
And just have fun with it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Just keep it open, bro.
Yeah, just keep it open and enjoy yourselves having good conversations.
Yeah. Anybody watching, man, submit your questions. Again, I'm a wholesale. I started off wholesaling real estate. I did some things called slow flips. That was my chapter 2 to build up some passive income without dealing with like the headaches of being a landlord.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to get into Section 8 in the Midwest market, man. So we're gonna document the journey too. Like we're gonna talk about these certain topics in our experiences like live on the podcast. So I'm excited, man, what the future holds.
This is so new. We don't even have a name or like a label or anything like that. We're just gonna throw this on a Hustle Man podcast that we currently have that I've had a few years ago. And we'll just start putting these on there and syndicating it.
Yep.
It's a Hustle Man podcast on YouTube. You'll find it on Spotify. It'll be on YouTube, Spotify, pretty much everywhere where you can get a podcast. All streaming platforms.
Where can people find you on Instagram? How can they follow you?
Me personally?
Yep.
Broad and Market Homes.
Broad and Market Homes.
At Broad and A-N-D Market Homes with an S.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's a black and white logo.
Very dope.
Stitched on my shirt.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at KR Direct LLC. Like I said, man, I document the journey. Any investors looking to buy some real estate, man, I'm always posting discounted properties for sale, whether it's fix and flips, buy and holds. Definitely has some valuable direct to seller deals. We have a lot right now.
We have a lot. Yeah,
right after this podcast, we have to go through a lot of stuff that we have and get things going and stuff. If you guys looking to buy, man, we got some hot deals for sure.
So I think first podcast, we want to get our sea legs.
Yep.
We want to get an understanding of where we want to go with this. Yep. And we don't want to do a lot of like I said before, I don't really want to sell people on things.
Not at all.
I want them to see what the value is and make a decision based on that.
Absolutely.
So we'll be deep diving into different categories, outside investing and, flipping, rental portfolios, landlord, being a landlord, doing, land deals, seller financing deals, wholesaling. We'll get into all that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I think right now we just want to have a conversation.
That's it, bro.
Yeah. We want to have a conversation and we want you guys to be part of that conversation and find value in what we're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So anything else? Any last words?
No, I think
All
we're
set,
good,
man.
We're good.
Great talking to you, brother, as always, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys, you can catch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple,
iTunes, whatever.
Wherever things are streaming.
Check us out, man.
Thanks for joining.